Good evening. I am Kate Harmony. Thanks for joining us on the show today.
I am Obafemi Craig, welcoming our viewers and audience to this episode. Join us after the break.
This is a news update on LAMATA Half Hour. All is now set for the relocation of the plantain traders at Mile 12 to Maidon off Agilinti Road, following the completion of the new market site by the Lagos Metropolitan Area Transport Authority, LAMATA. This is in fulfillment of LAMATA's promise to ensure the relocation of plantain sellers under the Resettlement Action Plan of the BRT Extension Project. The space currently being used by the plantain traders is to be converted for the construction of one of the BRT terminals under the ongoing Mile 12 to Ikorodu Town BRT Extension Project. The other terminal is at Agric Bus Stop. Professor Kayode Taiwo, Deputy Director Safeguard LAMATA, while speaking at a meeting held to discuss modalities for the smooth relocation of the plantain traders, said efforts had been made to ensure the completion of the new site with the provision of necessary facilities such as toilets, drainage systems, and access roads, among others. He noted that LAMATA has been able to bring together and work with all concerned stakeholders to ensure a smooth relocation of all the traders. The Director of Monitoring, Enforcement and Compliance, Ministry of the Environment, Mr. Toyin Onisarotu, commended LAMATA and asked the Market Association to work with the Ikosi Isheri LCDA authorities and the Mile 12 Community Development Association to ensure proper use of the market and facilities and to avoid littering the environment. Others present at the meeting were executive members of the Mile 12 Plantain Market and Mile 12 CDA executive members. Bids for the construction of two major aspects of the Bus Rapid Transit BRT extension from Mile 12 to Ikorodu, the construction of Mile 12 Terminal, Ikorodu and Agric Sub-Terminal, and the construction of bus shelters and platforms were opened last week. The bids were opened against the backdrop of the achievement of contractual milestones, which would allow the construction of the important components of the Public Transport Enhancement Project. The bid opening, which held at the Lagos Metropolitan Area Transport Authority Office Complex, confirmed that the BRT project will be completed before the end of the year, as earlier projected. Deputy Director Procurement LAMATA, Engineer Abiodun Dabiri, disclosed that 8 firms expressed interest in the terminal at Mile 12, while 11 submitted bids for Agric Terminal. The bus shelters were divided into 2 lots of 7 and 8 bus shelters. 10 construction firms expressed interest in Lot 1, which had 7 bus shelters, while 7 bought forms for Lot 2 with 7 bus shelters. Meanwhile, the state government and LAMATA have applauded residents and commuters along the axis for their continued patience and cooperation towards achieving an effective public transport system on the corridor. We recall that Governor Babatunde Raji Fashola last week led members of the State Executive Council on assessment of the project and used the opportunity to appeal to vehicle owners to desist from parking indiscriminately on the completed portion of the 13.5-kilometer road project. And that ends the news.
Basically, what LAMATA does is to coordinate public transportation in Lagos State, and we came up with a transport master plan.
Developed together with the World Bank, the objective of this plan is finding long-lasting solutions for the problem of transportation in Lagos. Currently under its first steps of development, the plan has already proven itself a big success, dramatically increasing the connectivity in a city in continuous expansion and enjoying an unparalleled demographic and economic growth.
Our responsibility is to ensure that we provide the necessary infrastructure to meet the growth, to improve the quality of life, to improve the standard of living, and to make Lagos a vibrant and livable city in years to come.
LAMATA, think transport.
Thanks for staying tuned. Every week on the program, we show you how LAMATA has, in the last 10 years, been improving and transforming public transport within the Lagos metropolis through infrastructural regeneration and provision. We have also brought you the professionals behind LAMATA's successes. Today, we shall be discussing the Bus Rapid Transit BRT Revamp Update with our guest, Deputy Director, Bus Services LAMATA, Dr. Desmond Amiegbebo. Dr. Amiegbebo holds a PhD in Transport Geography. He supervises the Bus Rapid Transit System and, of course, has been instrumental to a number of innovative public transport solutions LAMATA is currently working on. It's a pleasure to welcome on board Dr. Desmond Amiegbebo. You're most welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
Well, when people talk about BRT, they link it to LAMATA. Hence the reference to BRT buses as LAMATA buses. Truly, is LAMATA the owner of BRT buses?
Well, LAMATA is not the owner of BRT buses. LAMATA is a regulator. LAMATA provides the infrastructure, provides service specifications, provides the quality aspect, quality control. What happened is that LAMATA concessioned the operation of the BRT to a private operator, that is the NURTW. These private operator, they actually acquired, operate the buses, and train the drivers as well. So LAMATA does not own any of the buses in operation.
The BRT operation started about 6 years ago with great promise and expectations, but today the state of the buses and of course the issues about the system beg for attention. I also recall that sometime last year that efforts were put into place to restore the BRT operations to its once operational effectiveness. What's the update?
What has happened over the years is that we are passing through a learning curve in terms of the operation of the scheme, in terms of scheduling, in terms of bus maintenance, in terms, a lot of things will be a learning curve. But what is happening now is that from that learning curve, we are now bringing on board certain strategies to ensure the sustainability of the scheme. Okay. And such has to do with the refleeting of the buses. Ideally, these buses have about 5 to 6 years lifespan when you have effective maintenance regime in place.
You mean after 6 years you refleet?
Reflect.
Okay.
That is with effective maintenance and enabling environment.
Okay.
Now these buses started operation, about 100 of them started operation in March 2008. What has happened so far is that the first batch of the buses that started operation in March 2008 are being replaced.
Okay.
Last year, about 50 buses were acquired by the operator to replace some of the existing, the first batch of the existing buses. Now, what is being done so far is to come up with a kind of Pareto analysis to say, well, from the first batch to the second batch that came at different time, what is their performance profile? What are the technical issues? And based on those technical analysis or detail, the buses are being replaced. Now, 50 buses were acquired last year to replace 50 out of the first batch.
Okay.
Now this year, the operators has come up with a replacement program as well. That in the next few months, 50 buses will be acquired. Not additional now, but in replacement, it's a replacement policy.
Okay.
Outside the replacement of the buses, we are looking at the the infrastructure as well, the BRT lane.
Okay.
The contract for the rigid pavement, because what we have now is not rigid pavement. Hence, you see some part collapsing, you have gully, you have potholes and what have you. So there is this aspect of focusing on the infrastructure, upgrade of the infrastructure. So that is also ongoing.
As part of the revamping?
As part of the revamping strategy.
Exercise,
yes.
okay.
Now, another key aspect in terms, that has to do with the revamping is internal system, the internal control system. That has to do with the administrative aspect of the operation, scheduling, staff management, proper staff placement, amongst others. So these are also being looked into to ensure that the input that are being generated to get the right output, they are put in the right perspective. Now, looking at revamping in detail, we need to understand that principally we should be looking at two critical things. One is the quantity. Two is the quality. The quantity has to do with the number of buses in circulation at a particular period of the day. And that has to do with off-peak and peak period. Okay. So when you get these 50 buses to be added or in replacement of the existing weak 50 buses, certainly or reasonably the issue of quantity, the quantity aspect of revamping would have been addressed significantly. Now, the other aspect has to do with quality of services. With the internal control, with the training, with the reporting system, proper staff placement being addressed, you discover that quality service delivery will improve. Hence, revamping is vigorously pursued. But after revamping, what next? Sustainability. Because when you revamp and you just stop at revamping, what happens? So what strategies are being put in place to sustain the scheme beyond you and I? And that has to do with restructuring.
Okay, so looking through your checklist, what is to be done and how soon do we expect this total rebirth?
What I would say is, how soon is now? Why I use the word now is when you get to tomorrow, tomorrow is now. When you get to next week is now. So when you
get to another 1 month,
yeah, it is now. Yeah, so it is, although there are deliverables, although there are action plans being put that are being put in place which are being met, but I want to say that because transport is a service, something you see almost, the BRT operation is something you see almost every day. Okay. So go to the road, go to the corridor, check up, the rebate is now.
Thank you, Dr. Desmond. We have come to the end of this segment.
I'll be right back to take more questions, this time from our studio audience. Please stay with us.
We have heard, as we have been told, what LAMATA is doing to improve and revamp the operations of the bus rapid transit BRT system within the Lagos metropolis. And here we're going to give our studio audience the opportunity to interact with our guest. And ladies and gentlemen, good evening. And it's time to take your questions. Well, who takes the first question here?
The BRT cards. Most of the buses in operation now claim the machine is not in order, that is not functioning. And we now end up going back to buy ticket again, amounting to double spending. What is the organization doing in amending these lapses? Okay,
you observe that the last 50 buses that were acquired last year, maybe late last year, some of them up to now, they don't have validators installed. What is happening is that we are carrying out some adjustment. These adjustments have to do with some technical aspects of the scheme. It has to do with fare itself. The fare itself, because what we started with is 20 naira as the minimum and 66 naira point something kobo as the maximum in the first zone and what have you. But that is going to be adjusted and we'll communicate the public effectively. So once these adjustments are concluded, we'll assure you that all the buses will have functional validators.
What are you doing about Alimosho? We don't have any good bus in that area. When they carry from Ikotun, they drop it somewhere, they will tell you the bus is not good. You have to wait until they have another bus or you find your way.
Service on that catchment area, that is the bus franchise scheme from Iyanokpaja, Ikotun, Iyanokpaja, Maryland. We started out of the scheme in June 2009. As we speak now, the buses have been batched for refurbishment. The refurbishment action exercise has started. Outside the refurbishment, there is also a restructuring of the organization itself, which has commenced. So we are very much, it is very much hopeful that once these are concluded, that the desired services will be rendered.
I want to ask if you have supervisor for this BRT, because if you can understand all the questions they are asking about mostly on maintenance. So if you have supervisor, I don't think all these kind of things should be occurring to the BRT. For example, if the buses must go out, the supervisor has to at least check everything and make sure everything is in order before it can move out. My second question is, do you have measure for BRT? Measure, that is maybe Surulere has 10 BRT that we operate from Surulere to CMS, or CMS has 20 that we operate from so place. So I want to know if you have measure for it. Thank you.
On the issue of supervisors, yes, there are supervisors. One thing that has happened, or we have witnessed so far with the operator, is that when such questions, or when they are caused with such question as, why do you need to send buses that have some regulatory or that have some technical challenges on the road? They say, where? The pressure on the corridor is huge, and the number of buses in the fleet has depleted. Hence, they compromise safety. But that is not an excuse at all. That is not an excuse. The basic fact still remains. When you have demand and you roll out quality buses based on what you have, what you are doing, when you compromise safety, quality, that means you are giving them a product. You are giving them a product that is not acceptable. But we are not taking that excuse. So those supervisors actually, they are working, but I think, like I said earlier, the internal system reorganization will address some of the issues of a competence monitoring, poor oversight functions and what have you. So that internal system I mentioned earlier when we were discussing on the first segment, that will address the issue of those who are not monitoring what they're supposed to monitor, report what they are supposed to report, have knowledge of things they are supposed to have knowledge about, and things like that. Yeah, measure of control has to do with, there are supervisors, inspectors on ground. But beyond that, what LAMATA is coming up with is the deployment of ITS, Intelligent Transport System. These intelligent transport systems are going to, part of the components of the system is that it's going to have a bus control center. The bus control center will have all the buses on the road, running on the road, linked to the control center. You can see the movement, you can view the movement of the buses from the control center. You can monitor harsh braking from the control center. You can monitor route deviation from the control center. You can monitor all the performance, the recklessness of drivers on the street from the control center. So that is one of the innovation, one of the sustaining strategies that we are putting in place to ensure that the scheme is, continually remain relevant to the public. So why applauding or maybe appreciating the efforts of the current supervisors on the street? You know, human beings are human beings. With the deployment of the Intelligence Transport System, ITS, some of these nagging issues will be nipped on the bud, because you can view directly what is happening on the corridor, people waiting time. We are going to see, when some people come to the bus shelter, they will say they spent 30 minutes, 45 minutes. We are going to be viewing people waiting time right at the control center. You can talk to the driver if you so wish, although that also have its own, it has its own safety disadvantage. But you can decide to talk to the driver. You can decide to shut off the bus right from the control center. So that is the next stage that LAMATA is getting into, to ensure that some of these issues are addressed sustainably.
These are all the questions we can take from our audience. Back to you, Kate.
Thank you so much, Craig. At this point, we need your parting words, because I'm sure our viewers at home are waiting, and of course, as to your audience.
Well, LAMATA is an organization regulating the BROT and the BFS scheme. It's put a lot. It's put a lot of strategies in place, or has put a lot of strategy in place to make sure that the BRT return to its former glory. We will solicit for the cooperation of the public, users, because they are major stakeholders. Their cooperation is indeed needed at a time like this.
Thank you for being a part of the show. We'll be right back after the break.
To find out more about us, use the details now appearing on your screen. We'll love to hear from you.
Every member of our studio audience goes home with a loaded Lagos Connect card. Till next week,
LAMATA.
Lagos, my home. With LAMATA, Lagos is changing for the best. BRT lanes, modern rail lines, pedestrian